All right, so let's jump right in. The whole idea of automating things, especially when you're trying to judge quality, it's just so tempting. And a big reason why is the money. I mean, the economics of it seem like a total slam dunk.
I mean, just look at the numbers. You've got a choice. Pay a human expert, a real pro, maybe $200 an hour, or you can ping an AI judge for what, 2 cents a pop? When the difference is that stark, it feels like you'd be crazy not to automate everything, right? It just seems inevitable.
So, yeah, seems like an easy choice, doesn't it? Just flip the switch, let the robots take the wheel. But hold on, it's not that simple. There's a really big gotcha here, and a lot of people find out about it the hard way.
And this is the thing, the really crucial piece that the money argument just totally ignores. These automated systems, they aren't actually measuring reality. They're not measuring quality or truth in the way we do. Nope. They're measuring proxies. Think of them like simple, countable shortcuts for those really messy, complicated ideas. And that little gap, the space between the simple shortcut and actual reality, that's where things can get really dangerous.
This leads us straight into what I like to call the automation trap. It's this super common mistake of thinking that a simple number on a dashboard is the same thing as true quality. So let's unpack what that actually looks like.
So what in the world is a proxy? The easiest way to think about it is as a shortcut. It's something easy to count that you hope stands in for something that's really hard to measure, like, is this good, or are people happy?
Okay, here's a perfect example from the world of AI translation. What you really want is a great translation, right? Something that flows and makes sense, but what we often measure is something called a blue score. All it does is check how many words overlap with a perfect human translation. The thing is, a translation could use totally different words and be fantastic, but get a low score, or it could match the words and sound like a robot and get a high score. See? The proxy isn't the same as the quality.
Or how about a website? What you want is for your users to be happy and satisfied. But what do you measure? Usually it's how many people click on stuff. But a click doesn't mean satisfaction. Sometimes it means the opposite. It means someone just got tricked by a clickbait headline. Once again, what you measure isn't what you actually want.
And look, this is not some small niche problem. This number kind of says it all. A massive 47% of AI failures out in the real world aren't about the AI getting a fact wrong. They're ethical failures or cultural missteps, exactly the kind of thing that these simple proxy metrics are completely blind to.
So, if automation has these huge blind spots, where do we humans still come in? Well, it turns out there are some pretty specific areas, let's call them 5 superpowers, where human judgment is still absolutely king.
These are the big ones. Understanding culture and context, making moral and ethical calls, judging art or creativity, making sure something actually aligns with a bigger strategy, and, crucially, dealing with weird, new situations that have never come up before. An AI can get the facts right, but completely bomb on every single one of these.
This quote just nails the cultural context piece perfectly. A medical chatbot says, "Hey, try ginger for nausea." Factually, that's correct advice, but in some cultures, ginger is a huge no-no during pregnancy. An automated system just checking a box for correct advice would give that a 10 out of 10, but a human from that culture would spot the disaster immediately. That is the level of nuance that automation just can't handle yet.
Okay, so if one AI isn't perfect, people often have a seemingly clever idea. Well, let's just get another smarter AI to be the judge. A kind of robot referee to watch the first AI. It sounds good on paper, but this whole idea is just full of holes.
And it's a totally reasonable question, right? We've got these super powerful models now. Why can't they just evaluate other AIs? Well, the problem is these AI judges have their own weird, predictable little personalities and biases.
And honestly, some of these biases are just hilarious. They have a positional bias, meaning they tend to like the first answer you show them more. They have a length bias. They think longer answers are automatically better. They're total sycophants, always trying to agree with you, and maybe worst of all, they hallucinate. They will literally make stuff up to justify the score they give.
So what's the result of all that? Well, when scientists tested how often these big AI models agree with each other on tasks that require judgment, the score was just 0.52. That is basically a coin flip. For anything that's not a simple right or wrong question, you are getting a random number generator for a judge.
This means the solution isn't robots only or humans only. The really smart approach is a hybrid model. It's about creating a team where the AI does what it's good at and the humans do what they're good at. Let's make this real with something like content moderation. Here's how it works. You let the AI take the first pass. It can easily handle the 60 or 70% of stuff that's obviously fine or is a clear violation. That frees up your human experts to spend all their brain power on the really tricky 30-40% of cases, the gray areas. And maybe most importantly, anytime a user appeals a decision, it always goes to a human who can get the context. You get the speed of AI and the wisdom of humans. And just to really hammer this point home, let's look at a few quick stories of what happens when big companies put way too much faith in their automated metrics and it all went sideways.
First up, a huge search engine decided that clicks was the best way to measure quality. So the algorithm learned to get really, really good at showing you things you'd click on. Sensational headlines, clickbait, that kind of stuff. The problem? The stuff you clicked on was often terrible at actually answering your question. They perfected the proxy, but they wrecked the whole point of a search engine.
Then you've got social media platforms. Their magic word was engagement. Clicks, likes, shares, comments. So what kind of stuff gets the most engagement? Outrage, controversy, things that make people angry. The algorithm was just doing its job, optimizing that metric. But in the process, it ended up promoting polarizing content and creating these crazy echo chambers. It was a terrible proxy for what actually makes people feel good.
This last one is really sobering. A medical AI proudly announced it had 94% accuracy. Wow, sounds amazing. But when you dug into the numbers, that big, shiny accuracy score was hiding a disaster. For rare diseases, its accuracy was only 40%. For those specific patients, the system was a total failure. The single number hit a life-or-death flaw that only a human would think to look for.
So after all of that, what are the big takeaways here? 3 simple things. First, you have to map out what you're evaluating. Figure out what's subjective and what needs real human judgment. Second, if you're going to use an AI judge, you have to test it. Put it head-to-head with humans and look for those weird biases we talked about. And finally, build a hybrid system. Don't fall into the trap of thinking it's all or nothing.
Because at the end of the day, the goal here isn't to replace human judgment entirely. It's to aim it, to focus it on the places where it's absolutely irreplaceable. So I guess the question to leave you with is, in your own work, in your own life, where is that spot? Where does human judgment matter the most?